Good evening and welcome to the Tuesday, June 7th regular board meeting held here in Cliston. If you would be so inclined, please stand and follow us with the pledge of invocation. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I hope everybody made it okay. That weather was wild. All right, Mr. Superintendent, do we have any recognitions this evening?
We do have a couple of recognitions, and these are some very well-deserved recognitions that we hate to have to give, but nonetheless, some people do want to retire and enjoy their life. So we're going to do a couple of recognitions to some folks that's been with us a very long time, and wish them well as they go into retirement. Our first one is going to be Miss Maria Self. The workers and everybody else at Central who does everything Ms. Self told them to do wrote a few things about her and sent it in to us. And I'll just give you kind of the highlights to kind of point out. Most of you know Ms. Self in here, and they wrote a very, very nice kind of recap of her career with us in Hendry County Schools, and since she's been at Central Elementary School since 1995, right? That's what it says. Some of the highlights and what they said was stuff like jack of all trades. Yeah. Is that true?
Yes.
Yeah. Very okay. She is the first person you see and she greets you with a smile and how can I help you every time. Is that true?
Yes.
I believe every time I walk in, that's what I get from her, right? Ms. Self has been our front desk clerk at CES since 1995. She can run the office with her eyes closed. Someone said. I believe that. Most importantly, she is a familiar, loving face to our students every day and always encourages the students to do the right thing and to do their best. Isn't that a testament that everyone matters? A lot of times we get caught up in the fact that we're teachers, right? But it takes everyone. It takes the front desk clerks and the nurses and everyone to make that happen. So what a true testament. When asked to make a list of her responsibilities, Ms. Self came up with 33 items of things she was responsible for. I'm not sure I have that many. So I couldn't be a clerk, that's what I'm saying. Yes, right. One of the best things in my mind was the closing statement that was made here. We will miss her terribly and wish her nothing but the best in enjoying her time with her family. We love you, Ms. Self. I think that's pretty sweet. It gives me great pleasure to present this plaque to Ms. Maria Self, clerk typist at Central Elementary School, in appreciation for 27 years of service. I'm not even that old. And it's on behalf of the Hendry County School District, school board members, superintendent, and staff. Congratulations. And the next one is going to be to Ms. Linda Hunt. Now I've known Ms. Self and Ms. Hunt and the third one for a very long time. And I mean a long time. I can remember being really little and remember Ms. Hunt and everything that she's done for our school district. Ms. Hutton has been a school bus driver for 33 years. That's a long time, isn't it?
Wow.
And again, I reiterate the fact that, you know, we're an educational institution and we oftentimes think the teachers are what makes it happen, right? Well, let me tell you, when I did my bus driver training and I seen, part of it was we had to ride a bus and ride some routes. It was a humbling experience to me to watch kids get on a bus, and the first thing in the morning, oftentimes before daylight, guess what they did? Hug the bus driver. And in the afternoon, they would get off the bus, guess what they did before they got off the bus? Hug the bus driver. And guess what I seen happen, and that's when it really struck home to me. The bus driver that I was riding with handed a bag to this particular child. And went on the way, and I said, oh, we forgot stuff? She goes, no, I know, and I know they need some extra clothes, so my boys had some extra. This is what our bus drivers do. So it takes an entire village to make education happen, not just teachers. It takes everyone. It takes a front desk. It takes people being in clerk classes. It takes people riding the bus. They're the first smiling face they see. Oftentimes might be the only one all day, and especially when they get home at night. And so the job of the bus driver is one that we never take lightly. We're very appreciative for the years of service that Ms. Hunt put in. Some of your co-workers said, she is always willing to lend an extra hand that our department so desperately needed, and we're fortunate to have her as our team member. Our transportation family will surely miss her, and I believe that. I'll surely miss her, that's for sure. But I know that she has some grandchildren, and she can make her husband retire, and they can spend time doing some things that they would love to do as well. Our plaque in the something says, bus driver, Wilson Transportation, in appreciation for 33 years of faithful service to Hendry County. For the Hendry County School District System, school board members, superintendent, staff. Congratulations. Happy retirement. Yeah, I'll bet.
She can always come back and sub.
Yeah, right. And if you change your mind, we need bus drivers, so we'll welcome you back. And our last one goes this evening to Ms. Deborah Willis. Deborah Willis is another one that I think I've known, I believe, since I was teaching at Wilson High School. And so I'll tell a few things about Ms. Willis you may not want me to say, well, you know, it's no better now, right? And so it was always, Ms. Willis was one of those people you've always seen working, always seen doing something at the high school, always engaged, always willing to hand. Always working, always doing it with a smile on her face. I'm not sure I've ever heard a negative thing come from her. Have you, Mr. Willis? No. See? and one thing she might not want me to say, but I'll say it because I caught her one time, and this was school day had ended, and I had went to another, it was in late in the evening, and I went to another Hendry County facility, and guess who I seen there working? Miss Willis. And so this lady don't stop. And so she is a great human, provides for her family, does everything she can for everyone around her, and at the end of the day, just an all-around great individual. The nice things that your folks said about you was Deborah Willis graduated from Wilson High School. Later began her career 32 years ago on May 3rd, 1990. Just checking, see, right? As a paraprofessional in a self-contained classroom. Ms. Willis is a devout Christian, very professional in every aspect of her job. I couldn't have said that any better myself. She is extremely dependable and hardworking, and always did whatever was asked of her. Ms. Willis is willing to do whatever it takes to get a job done. Ms. Debbie Finley said, she has shared her wisdom with us all. She always looked out for us, even with prayers. It's hard to beat that as a compliment. Ms. Willis's plaque says, presented to Deborah Willis, paraprofessional at Wilson High School, in appreciation for 33 years of faithful service to Hendry County. Hendry County School District System, Hendry County School Board Superintendent staff. Congratulations. Thank you all very much. Appreciate y'all being here. We love y'all. Wish you happy retirement. You're welcome to stay for the next 2 hours of meeting, but if you want to leave.
It will not be that long. Somebody's keys. Thank you all. Drive safely. Mine is, it only loads that much.
Jason Lane.
So,
yeah.
we have some internet.
Nothing's loading.
Like I can get part of the consent agenda, but action items don't show. Oh, now it is, wait, it just came in. I promise it wasn't. It hit, yours loaded up now? Okay.
You just had to walk up here.
It's what it
Walk up.
was. Thank you, Mr. Adams. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Superintendent, do we have any presentations this evening?
Yes, we do have a presentation this evening. Tonight, our presentation is going to be from Ms. Devonia Allen, our Administrator of School Improvement. Ms. Allen came to us, if you remember, from the Bureau of School Improvement. She was selected because of her great skill set that she has at being able to work with our schools, administrators, leaders, teams, teachers, and create systems that makes us a better school system. So today she's going to outline some of the things that she's been working on since she began with us, I think, in October. Is that correct? Yes. In October timeframe. Yes. And kind of outline a few of the things that that we think you'll be interested in. And if you have questions, I'm sure she'll be glad to take them.
Hello. Good evening, board. And first, I want to thank you for the opportunity to allow me to share some of the great things that we've been doing in the school district and some of the things that are underway. All right, so if you take a look at my PowerPoint, these are the 3 pillars that the Bureau of School Improvement utilizes to serve as the basis for school turnaround. And they are transformational leadership, positive culture and environment, and standards-based planning, instruction, and learning. It is important that we work consistently to keep all of these at the forefront and have a healthy balance of all 3 in order to maintain sustainability. So here is an outline of my first few weeks. I had the opportunity to visit all 10 schools, participate in PLCs, also in professional learning, MTSS committee meetings, but I actually was able to really get my feet wet in almost everything that was happening within our district. And from that, I was able to collect baseline data, which this approach was necessary for me to understand where my work needed to begin. And so as you can see, from my observations, our focus needed to go towards instruction. And I also determined that by meeting with the superintendent and both directors. So I do want to highlight the first 3 bullet points based on trends, and this is simply trends, a snapshot of what I observed in classrooms, that we needed to focus more with aligning our grade appropriate standards, meaning exposing students to grade appropriate content, but also making sure there was a daily target present for students. So when students walked in, they knew exactly what the intentions were for the day. We also needed to make sure that students had the appropriate strategies that they were utilizing to accomplish the task before them, and that the teacher had the appropriate questions for students. So we, again, wanted to make sure there was an alignment with all those pieces. The second bullet point was to make sure that everyone understood and that there was clarity around the content standard. So what is it that the standard wants students to know and be able to do? And then the last bullet point was that we wanted to ensure that everyone understood the purpose for learning. And that's a huge piece. From the teacher's perspective, if we don't understand what it is that we want teachers or students to walk away with learning, and also for students, if I don't understand why I'm even reading this text today, then we've defeated the purpose. And so with that, I want to use the example around building knowledge. So let's just say in a 2nd grade class or 3rd grade class, they were reading The 3 Little Pigs. The goal is not for kids to say, oh, there was 3 pigs and oh, these are the resources that they use to build their houses. what we want them to walk away with knowing is if you do things right the first time and you take your time, it'll pay off in the long run. And so that is what we want to do for students because we want to make sure they can relate it to real world applications. And so those 3 bullets, again, I want to highlight because as I continue through my presentation, you'll understand its connection to the before planning process. And so here's our roadmap. You probably can't see it that great, but I'll be happy to share it with you. So as a result of the district trends, we developed a roadmap, which is where we want it to be in, I'll say about 2 years. So this included the look-fors that we captured as a result of the opportunities that we needed to address for teachers that you saw on the previous slide. So our goal was to hone in on the big rocks to make sure that students receive the quality instruction that they deserve, obviously, and that eventually we will be a school district. And so all of these opportunities for growth for teachers can be contributed to the lack of targeted professional learning that we are starting to provide for teachers. We want to make sure they're properly equipped before we can say what's happening and not happening. And so from the initial steps that I referred to, we went into the common language and planning protocol. And let me preface this by saying that in education, we borrow. And when I say we borrow, we do not recreate the wheel. And so initially, this document was developed during my time with the Department of Education. But what we did is we put it in front of principals, coaches, lead teachers, and we retweaked it so that it could work for Hendry County. So there are a lot of updates that were made so that, again, we can use it for Hendry. And so I want to direct your attention to the first document, which is the common language. It is important in K-12 that we are speaking the same language, no matter where we are in the district, Lewiston side, the LaBelle side, at LaBelle High School with all the teachers, Lewiston Middle School, Central Elementary, wherever we are, that we're speaking the same language. And this common language document allows us to do just that. So what we say, we mean. And then we have our planning protocol process. Our focus for this year has been the before planning process. So there's 4 steps in the before planning process. The first step is ensuring that teachers understand that there should be a single topic or subject linked to the content standards. So this is where we bring in our social studies, science, our CTE courses. Step 2 is that we determine that there's a takeaway from the content standard. So teachers need to understand, like, based on this standard, this is what my kids need to know and be able to do. The third step is determining the takeaway from the text or the unit that they're reading. And so from that, what knowledge are we trying to build around that topic? And teachers need to know that before they plan. And then the last step is either to utilize the district's selected curriculum that we provided and or create a question that students will have to answer to show their understanding of what they're learning. And so those are the 4 steps that we focused on this school year. For the most part, those pieces are embedded in our curriculums. We will, as a district, continue to monitor that to see how it's going before we roll out the during planning process. So I can tell you, like Superintendent Swindle said, I arrived in October. The half-day PDs and also the PLC opportunities allowed me to get in quickly to make sure we were able to spread this throughout the district in the manner in which I did. So thank you. So going back to the pillars, the 3 pillars, I do want to highlight the transformational leadership pillar at this time and just talk about some of the things that we've done. I want to go first to our principal meetings. Since my arrival, Superintendent Swindle has shifted our way of work in our principal meetings to make sure there's a strong focus on instruction. He repeats it every month. There's a strong focus on instruction. He wants to make sure that we are building instructional leaders, and that is at the forefront at all times. And so in our meetings, we focus on how to provide specific feedback to teachers after classroom walkthroughs. The principals have had the opportunity to provide feedback on the common language and the standard-based protocol before we rolled it out. The principals have had the opportunity to share best practices, with their peers. So we made a lot of adjustments based on our principals meeting. The next one is the coaches meetings. Since my arrival and with the help of both directors, we've been able to merge the coaches meetings, so it's K-12. Again, we're trying to speak the same language to make sure no matter where coaches are dispatched, if they are, that they can just start the work, so that they're not trying to learn what's happening in the school. And so with that, the coaches have been exposed to the same thing, the common language, the before planning processes, also coaching conversations, which was a fun experience, also providing specific and targeted feedback after they walk classrooms. So our next pillar, again, going to the culture and climate. As a district team, we rolled out a survey just to get a pulse on where we were as a district team and if there was anything that we needed to address. And from that survey, there was 3 things that teachers pointed out that they really wanted to see or needed additional support on. And the number 1 thing was that teachers wanted more targeted professional learning aligned to our district strategic plan, our school improvement plan, and their individual needs. So they wanted more alignment with that. The second thing was communication. They wanted to ensure that there was a system in place from the district, from the top, to provide more consistent messaging from the top down. And then the third thing was collaborative decision making. They wanted to make sure they had a seat at the table when it was time to make decisions on bigger issues. And so when we created, as a result of that survey, we created a committee. And with that committee, we've been able to dive a little deeper into the data and also develop actionable steps, which you'll see listed below. Some of those things were a result of what steps we took as a result of the survey. I do want to highlight one thing, and that's the PBIS art contest. And we put this, I want to say it was like maybe 2 weeks before the end of the school year. It was something to get students involved, grades 6 through 12. And we had a student, his name was Edalberto from LaBelle High School. I believe it was posted on Facebook, but I don't have social media, so I didn't see it. But the design will be featured on all of our PBIS VIP Pro cards for next school year. And so the goal of this contest was, again, to ensure that every stakeholder is included in this culture and climate piece. And students are a part of that as well. And so our standards-based instruction is our last pillar and the heaviest. The first 4 items I addressed on the previous slide. But I do want to speak to our partnership with the IT department, the library and media department under Mr. Jason Adams, a great partnership. So I want to say that with the standards-based instruction, we've been able to partner with them to first reimagine how our libraries look to kind of assist with the planning process and student in terms of literacy, and also for everyone to recognize that they are our educational partners in this planning process and that they can help us learn and teach students how to integrate technology in the classroom. And so we've done a lot of work around streamlining the curriculum and programs. This is a huge one for me, I'll say. And what we've done as a district is look through everything that we have to offer and figured out where we have duplications and or where we're lacking effectiveness. And so with that being said, our goal is to eliminate those things and take that off of teachers and students' plates. So I want to give you an example of what I mean when I say take it off their plates. For a 7th grade student, right now, well, before last week, the student would have had to, in ELA, take the Achieve 3000 baseline, the iReady baseline, and the Amplify baseline. That kid then goes to math and has to take Math 180, iReady Math, iExcel Math, and then the kid has to go to civics and takes US test prep, and then we have science. We have, again, iExcel. So as of now, that kid would only have to take whatever test when we receive it from the Department of Ed, also the Amplified curriculum, Achieve 3000, whatever math textbook we adopt, and the district social studies and science benchmark. So it's a huge difference. And again, we're trying to eliminate things off of teachers and students' plates. We want to use the best product for the best results. All right, so the last thing that I want to talk about today is our CHS Champion Mentoring Initiative. And so at the end of January, Superintendent Swindle informed our team that he was a part of the Superintendent Academy and that he was tasked with this project. And he was so geeked about it. And he said that he needed to focus on a set group of high school students. And he was just trying to figure out where we can make an immediate impact. And so with that, we looked at CHS. And with CHS, I obviously looked at the school improvement plans. And I noticed that there was two subgroups that CHS was not meeting the mark with. And that was students with disabilities and also our African American subgroups. And so with that being said, I reported that back to Mr. Swindle. And we started digging into some more data over a few weeks before we decided to move forward. So as you noticed, we said we would pilot the African American subgroup. There was a total of 124 students in that group, like school-wide at CHS. We wanted to start with something more manageable. We, again, continued to look at the data. So if you look over at the student absences, 35 students had 15 to 37 or more absences. And then we had 89 students with 14 or less absences. And then we had 39 of that subgroup with a 2.0 GPA or less. And so we knew we had some work to do. So Mr. Swindle reached out to a few community leaders, Johnny Jackson, Howard McKyer, and Eddie Warren, to join us as we initiated this CHS Champions, because it was built to champion students, not to like beat them over the head with a hammer. I think they've had that enough. And our goal was to monitor these students every week until we met our goal. And so we had our first meeting with these young men on March 30th. I know they got sick of seeing us, but you know what? Our method worked. So I want to talk about the data from just a subgroup of seniors. So there was 30 African American males at CHS. Remember, that was our subgroup. When we first started, there was 18 young men that were at risk for not graduating this school year. 18. Yes. So if you take a look at this slideshow, I'll just talk from the blue bars. This was a snapshot of where students were. And this was the matrix that we used to determine if students were at risk. And so if students had missing credits, if they had less than a 2.0 GPA, if they had not passed the ELA FSA test and or received a concordance score, which is SAT or ACT, and they had not passed the math test, so algebra EOC and or the PERT test, then they were at risk. So it could have been a combination or one of these items. So 18 were at risk, 11 were missing credits, 8 did not have a 2.0 GPA or higher, 13 had not passed FSA reading, nor did they have a concordance score, and then 11 had not passed the algebra EOC or PERT test. So as you can see, the numbers started declining. When we started, there was a total of 25 missing credits, and that was a combination between semester 1 and semester 2. And by May 18th, all students had a 2.0 GPA or higher, and all their credits were made up. So students were able to accomplish this in 60 days. Talk about an impact. So based on our debrief last week, we debriefed with our champions last week. We plan to start this process earlier next year with whatever said group needs the support in our schools. I would like to personally thank those community leaders who took time from their jobs to support our district. Also, Principal Summers for allowing us to use CHS as a pilot. And I cannot go without thanking Ms. Jackson. Ms. Jackson met with those students every day. She called parents. She met with mentors to make sure they knew where the students stand. And most importantly, she had to deal with me coming to CHS literally almost every day saying, where's the data? How much, how are we looking now? But Ms. Jackson was a trooper through this process, so I could have not done it without her. And my last slide is, I wanted to share the projected data for the percentage of our senior class that is on track for graduation this year. And keep in mind, this is for our senior class only. This is not the cohort group. What you see and what we did at CHS had a direct impact on the numbers that you see here today. And so if you look closely at the highest number, which is the number of students needing ELA only, as a district, we are monitoring that closely. And what's playing into those numbers, and we do have a plan that we plan to address for next year so that hopefully we won't repeat this again. And then last, these are our next steps for this summer because we have no time off, and then next school year. And so the biggest piece this summer is the school improvement plan support for our principals to make sure that we have goals aligned to our district strategic plan, and also that our action steps are aligned to help them reach those goals. The other things, obviously the district curriculum mapping team and the added site-based team and plan will be a part of the school improvement plan. And then the last piece is for 2022-23 school year, is we will continue to streamline curriculum and programs. And next year, for the first time, we'll be having our monthly data chats with schools to see where they are, to see where the support is needed. And I'll do that with both directors so that we can make sure they have the support that they need as well as our teachers. And then we'll shift to our during planning process. You heard me talk a lot about the before planning process today, which is what students need to think about, teachers need to think about and do before they arrive to planning. But next year, we're going to go into what we need to do when we get inside of the planning session. And so the last thing is our district monitoring. We'll continue to do that for alignment of our strategic plan, our school improvement goals, our action steps, and any site-based observational data that we collect. Thank you.
Any questions from the board?
Oh, I'm sorry. Do you have any questions?
Yeah.
We're going to let Mr. Saturday take the wheel.
Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. So you were talking about the PLCs.
Yes.
How has that been received? I went to a couple of trainings. I thought it was good. How does the teachers and the staff see it? They seem to be working on it, you think? What's your impression?
So with the PLCs and the half-day PDs,
Yes.
from my experience so far, teachers have been very, very excited about it. I think having the structure for what happens in the PLCs and professional learning
Yes.
is what we did not have right away. But we did put that in place early on, like last year, 2021, so that there was a set agenda, during that time. And so teachers have been very appreciative. And I'll use LaBelle High School as an example. Just seeing what they did the last few half-day PDs was amazing. I know I was able to deliver a professional learning with them. I was able to meet with their lead teachers their lead teachers took what we did in our session, and to see the lesson plans that they built, you would have thought, I've been planning with them for years. Like, seriously, it was really good, and we went back to do classroom observations, and we were able to see evidence of exactly what they had in their lesson plans as a result of our meeting.
Well, I was hoping that because we did our calendar again, because that's what we had hoped would be the results. I have another question.
Yes,
Multiple elementary schools working together. When I was at the elementary school, it was a lot of competition. Oh, our school's doing better than that school, so the parents all want to go to East Side because their scores were higher than West Sides or Centrals and stuff like that. Are we working with the elementary schools, with those teachers together at grade levels, so they all are getting those same skills, and so that we grow more or less together rather than somebody being the shining star and nobody wants to go to the other school? You know what I mean?
absolutely. I've been a huge component for K-12 since I got here. The only difference is what we utilize in the classrooms. But teachers share a lot of knowledge that they could utilize to support each other. And so I know this year we have our first district PD on August 3rd, and that's going to be an opportunity for us to bring the entire district together so teachers can take advantage of some of those courses that they said they need. But the planning process, the common language, that is the purpose of all those particular processes, to ensure that, again, we're on the same page and that we're collaboratively planning together. January 3rd and 4th, we did just that. We pulled all the teacher leaders in, principals, and again, so that they all can start working together, so that they can see this is not in isolation, but this is something that we're doing together.
Great. That's what I wanted to hear. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have,
Yes,
how
sir.
successful have we been with students that parents may not have been as supportive as we would like them to be? Reality is, a lot of parents don't, and I'm concerned about those kids that don't have that at home, and yet they're able to still achieve. Where are we with that? You said Ms. Jackson called, so we haven't had much support for those children.
So I'll say, are you referring to the seniors?
Right.
We actually had a parent show up for the mentoring event at CHS. And just full transparency, she said, he doesn't think he can do it. And let me tell you, and Mr. Swindle can vouch for this, that kid had 9 missing credits. That kid finished everything.
Graduated.
Yeah, he finished everything. 9 missing credits. What we did, again, I think initially when we started, Mr. Sanchez and I just started calling parents like, is it okay for your kid to be a part of this initiative? And then we met with the young men. I mean, we had the mentors who were familiar faces in the community, and they kind of helped us out in the community. And we met with our mentors, I want to say every 2 weeks. So there was always updates from every angle. Now, again, we do plan to push this out next year again, and try to reach a more broader audience, or a wider audience. And so we'll continue to get on the phones. We talked about implementing parent universities so we can kind of get more parents out and more involved in their child's education.
Thank you. I was just so concerned. It's easier for us to say, okay, we need more parental support, but what do we do when they don't? And that's reality. Some's not going to do it.
Right. Would you like to sign up for our door knocking committee?
Yeah, I'm on the phone now.
I might. I have no idea.
I think that was a great question, Reverend Brown. I agree. I think if kids realize that their parents are involved and they care, they're going to want to please them. So,
Yes.
great. And I just wanted to, I don't really have a question, just a comment. When I saw you on the agenda, I was so excited because I knew it was going to be spectacular, and you have made my heart very happy.
Thank
So
you.
thank you to you and to everybody involved. Really appreciate it.
I appreciate it. We couldn't have done it without each other.
It's a village. It's a
It takes
village.
a village.
So, Mr. Superintendent, do you want to put
So,
something back?
yeah, I'll just wrap it up for us, and so I want to say great questions, Mr. Simberdike and Mr. Brown. You know, some of the big things, and you were spot on, Mr. Simberdike, 2 and 3 years ago, it was almost a competition among schools as to who had the highest performance, and they kept their arms around their information and shunned each other back. Today, that culture is 180 from there. Principals work together, principals sit together. Ms. Duncan has done a phenomenal job of getting those principals at the table and working through the things that they're doing well, the things they're not doing well. The results are showing, and so yes, it has shown up. What Ms. Allen specifically is working on is systems. So not just a quick fix to anything, but how do we build systems that's conducive for teaching and learning in Hendry County? And so it takes time, and so she's penetrated it since October. The work she does with Ms. Duncan and Mr. Sanchez, building systems so that we can sustain high quality teaching and learning, and that's what we're having to do. So I'm eternally grateful for the two directors and Ms. Allen and the work they do. The three of them together are making changes to this district that we've never seen before, and it's making a huge impact. And we'll be talking about some of those impacts in the meetings to come, and how it actually stands out in our data. And so
Ms. Allen is great.
Yes.
And I expected nothing less, because I think she does a great job.
Thank you.
And Mr. Brown.
I love those questions.
Yes, they're good ones. And Mr. Brown's spot on. Oftentimes, if we're trying to teach reading to a baby and it's not important, or the parents don't read at home, that's an uphill battle. And so it's a never-ending battle that we face. And you know what we do? We put on a smile and we come back tomorrow and we work on it again. And we keep doing it. And we do programs like the Footsteps to Brilliance, and we do things that we can try to get the parents engaged and involved and help the babies read. We know that's important. And so it's a big challenge. And the champions group this year just couldn't have turned out better. The 18 young men that we started with, I think the turnaround they've seen within themselves, and those of you who are at graduation, I think all of them walked across the field, and that was like a proud parent moment for us, with huge hearts and swelling that I was pointing some of them out to y'all.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah.
These two look like proud parents
Yeah.
at graduation, right? Because she sat next to me and I learned more about that program. This is one of ours right here, watch this right here.
Yeah.
Just amazing
Right.
work. And two were like proud parents, I'm telling you.
And the difference is the personal touch. The touch that the team brought, the touch that the mentors brought, the call that they would get almost on a nightly basis saying, hey, did you do your homework? Why weren't you in school today? And they can, things can happen that we can't necessarily do as educators.
Right.
And so when Johnny Jackson says, wait a minute, I know your mama, they go, what, you do? And so, and that meant a lot. And so that was huge. So we're really excited about the program.
I do want to say that the half days, I know I have been against the half days, but it sounds like the half days are really paying off,
Yeah.
where they did not used to before.
Right.
So kudos
So they,
to you guys for turning those half days into productive days.
right, and they have been productive all along, just with pockets of things that needed to be tweaked and brought along.
Right.
And now they're turned into a time, and we stand over them as a result to ensure that we are focusing on teaching and learning. How is what you're doing helping teaching and learning that happen at APD? And that's just the expectation, and there's no question from any of the principals that they know that time has to be invested.
Extra accountability piece.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right.
Is what that
What
is.
gets
And-
measured gets done.
Yeah.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So, any further questions? Thank you all very much. Thank you to both directors. Ms. Allen, great presentation.
And I have Reverend Brown's contact information.
Oh, I will call, trust me.
I think you would be a great mentor, or even a door knocker, phone caller. Thank you very much. All right, Mr. Superintendent, do we have any citizen comment on agenda items at this time?
We have none.
Awesome. Moving on to the consent agenda, are there any items that a board member would like to have pulled and moved to action tonight? Okay, seeing none. Mr. Superintendent, do I have a recommendation for the consent agenda?
I recommend approval of the consent agenda as printed.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Sammerdike and a second by Mr. Brown. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, consent agenda passes. All right, Mr. Superintendent, action item A, do I have a recommendation for the 2022-23 lead teacher?
Yes, these are our lead teachers throughout the schools for the 2022-23 school year, and I recommend approval of the lead teachers as presented.
Second.
Motion by Reverend Brown and a second by Mr. Sammerdike. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. 2022-23 lead teachers approved. All right, Mr. Superintendent, do you have a recommendation for the 2022-23 administration reappointments?
At this time, I'm going to request that we pull the 2022-23 administration reappointments, and I will bring them back to you June 21st, in 2 weeks.
Okay. All right, moving on to action item C, FLDOE Special Facilities Construction Account Engagement. Mr. Superintendent, do you have a recommendation?
Yes, actually, we have a presentation for you on that. I think Mr. Buson's going to help Ms. Brown get set up, and while they're doing that, I'll kind of lay the groundwork just a little bit here. So we've been having conversation about the need for a school in LaBelle, and Mr. Buson and team have been working very hard to analyze and get data together on that. And so tonight we're going to present you with the data of where we are with that. And tonight, Ms. Violet Brown, and she is with the Florida Department of Education, Special Facilities Use, and she's going to talk to you about the Special Facilities Use construction account and what that means to us, and then how we can engage that. And she is a wealth of knowledge, a wonderful human being, very educational for us to be around. I'm sure she leaves here scratching her head every time saying, what's wrong with Houston Swindle? But we pick at her a lot, and we have learned a lot, and we look forward to a very successful program with her. So with no further ado, let me introduce you to Ms. Violet Brown.
First of all, board members, thank you so much for having me. I have a hard act to follow. What a great program you all have. I think we talked about this back when I was here in November about some of the programming, and they've been bragging about you all throughout the district. So congratulations on having this young lady as part of your district. My name is Violet Brown. I'm with the Florida Department of Education, Office of Educational Facilities, and I'm here to talk to you about the Special Facility Construction Account Program. Everything that I'm talking to you about is in Florida Statute 1013-64, and I have it in a nice little presentation, and you should have a handout available. So let's just get started. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the statutory requirements. We're going to talk about the purpose of the program, what the pre-application process entails, what happens next, what's post-approval, and then answer any questions you all may have. That's fine. So this program provides necessary funds to school districts that may not have sufficient funds to build a new school. When we say necessary funds, we look at your two bills. And the value of your two bills or your 1.5 mils. And so if that value over 3 years is not enough to build a school, we're here to help you with that process. And when I say we're here to help you, we will provide funding for such schools. So that's a big deal, just providing funding. Buzz, it's skipping us the slide. Tony, can you come check for me? It's skipping. It's here, there. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's, yeah, there you go.
There we go. I got the superstar on. Thank you. So the way the program works is the district can apply for one specific educational plan, meaning one school. After you pay back for that one school, you can come back and apply for another school in the program, but right now we're talking about applying for one school. You may not receive funding for more than one project in any 3-year period. The magic 3-year thing is because the legislature usually funds the school over 3 years. So if it's $60 billion to build a school, you'll get $20 million the first year, $20 million the second year, $20 million the third year. So it's important that you manage your construction practices. The pre-application process, and that's the first step. And here are some of the pre-qualification requirements. The district for a minimum of 3 years shall be levying the maximum millage to apply for the program. And according to what we've talked about, you all have been doing that already. The construction must be recommended in the most recent educational plan survey, meaning the new school project. My staff and I were here, I think back in November. We actually walked every facility, measured every space. Mr. Buzz took us all around, made sure that we saw everything, measured everything. I will tell you, I picked the right time of year to come. The lady that was the bus driver is no longer here, but I picked a time when they had like a feast at the bus shop. And man, was that some good eating. I didn't know if I was going to finish my workday after that. I know I'm in the sweetest school district in the state of Florida, and they treated me really sweet over there. We came back, I think, in February and did what's called the Educational Plan Survey, which is all the recommendations for any renovation, remodeling, and new construction. And we're still working on that, so that's a work in process. If a district is seeking inclusion in the next legislative budget session, then we need to have your pre-application request by February 1st. And there's a timing thing there because the request has to be to the legislature 45 days before session starts, so there's a little timing issue there. Within 90 days after receiving a request, you all send a letter to the department saying we'd like to apply for the program. We send a committee out to come review what's called critical need. The committee is made up of 2 people from the Department of Education and 2 people from districts that don't qualify for the program. And so those are the folks that come out to determine critical need. What does critical need mean? Now, I'm a little bit ahead of myself, so I'm sorry about that. I like to talk. There are 7 things that we look at for critical need. We look at the capacity of existing facilities in all the schools that are in FISH, or the Florida Inventory of Schoolhouses. That's what we came out and did in November. If you'll notice on all your school doors, there's a room number, a building number. All of that is tied to this FISH database. It's the way we get capital outlay full-time equivalents. It's the way we determine class size reduction, etc. The district's pattern of student growth, if you have a lot of growth or if you don't have growth. So that's your COFD projections that comes from EDR. We look at projected and capital outlay full-time equivalents. We look at your satisfactory student stations or the classrooms that are good, the ones that you're using and that are usable. We look at all your district properties and facilities, which we had the pleasure of walking around and looking at both in November and in February. I think I had a team of 4 that were down here. We look at grade level configurations, meaning if you have K-5, K-6, middle schools, high schools, how do you configure your schools? If the pre-application subcommittee, which are the 2 people that come from my office and 2 people from districts that don't qualify, say you meet critical need, we go to step 2. Well, step 2 is when you come up to Tallahassee and present to the big committee and the big special facilities committee. Well, let's go over a checklist. Everything must be recommended in the survey. We've talked about that. Check. The construction project must appear on the PPL. That's part of the survey. Your project priority list is where you allocate your capital outlay and debt service funds. So you do have to allocate some payback to this program, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit. The district must have an approved site for the construction project. The school board shall have a developed facilities list that do not exceed the norms. That just means if you have 1,000 students at the school, we make sure we build it for about 1,100. Make sure you have the type of programs you want. If you have ROTC, we make sure you have the right facilities for that, etc. And so that's what that means. Upon construction, the total cost per student station does not exceed the cost that's in statute. We make sure it doesn't, and we help you manage those costs. We know that construction costs have gone up astronomically recently, some districts up to 40% more. And so we are aware of that, so we try to help work with you on that and make sure that when we recommend this new schools that we have all the costs that we need to include so that it's a comprehensive process. There shall be an agreement signed that the board will advertise for bids within 30 days after receiving your first encumbrance. And then the board resolution. That's kind of like your payback agreement. And so that payback is the value of 1.5 mils times 3 years. So if your 1.5 mils is $1 million, your payback to this program would be $3 million, regardless of the cost of the school. Now, I don't know what the value of your 1.5 is, but I'm just giving you an example, so you'll know how valuable this program
Is
is.
there a time frame on that? Is there a time frame on the payback?
There is, and I'm going to get to that slide, but to answer your question, it's up to 1 mil until your participation requirement is met.
So there's
So
not.
that way, you have a little bit maintained to maintain your other facilities, to take care of some other issues that you may have in the district. So statute clearly says it's up to the value of 1 mil. It doesn't tell you 1 mil, it doesn't tell you 0.5. It says up to the value of 1 mil until your participation requirement is met. So if your 1.5 mil is $1 million and your participation requirement is 3, you can do the value up to 1 mil. If it takes you 5 years, it's just up to 1 mil until your participation requirement is met. So that's the time frame.
Okay. Thank you.
Your CO and DS funds also are obligated to the project. Once the checklist is completed, that's when you come up to Tallahassee and present to the Special Facility Construction Account Committee. And those are what I call the big wigs on the committee. Typically, it's our Deputy Commissioner of Finance and Operations, that's Ms. Suzanne Pridgeon. Mark Eggers, you've probably heard his name before, he's the Deputy Commissioner of Finance and Operations. There's also a representative from the Governor's Office, a representative selected annually by the District School Boards Association, and a representative from the Superintendent's Association. Either Suzanne Pridgeon or Mark Eggers from the Department of Education will chair that committee. And once you meet that critical need, you come up to the department to get ranked. So if there's 2 or 3 districts that have applied for this program, each district presents to this committee and they rank each project based on which district has the most critical need. I will tell you whether you're ranked 1st or 3rd or 2nd or 5th, you just need to be ranked, because once you're ranked, then you start getting into the funding cycle. And so it's just important to be ranked and have a great presentation, and we'll talk a little bit more about that as the time gets near. The committee reviews the request, they evaluate the project's ability to relieve critical need, they rank the request in priority order, and then the budget has to be to the governor 45 days prior to session. So that's why you have that time frame of February 1st, and then 90 days for us to come out and visit, and then you do the other process. And so this is all about helping the kids, educating the kids, and trying to have great facilities for students. The post-approval process, what happens after you get approved and after you get ranked for the project. Here's your payback that you asked about, up to the value of 1 mil until your participation requirement is met. And I know we have the school board attorney present, I think, but this is right out of 1013-64. I just kind of put it together because it's about this long in statute, and it just goes and goes and goes. The LBR, which is the legislative budget request, I already talked about that. The commissioner will submit that to the legislature 45 days prior to session. Schematics, which is once we get past this process, June 1st, we should have schematics for whatever the proposed new school may be. Bids, if a contract hasn't been signed 90 days after you've been approved for this process, your funds could revert back. Don't worry, we won't let that happen. You're granted an additional 90 days by the commissioner if need be. Managing construction right now has just been a little tough with the economy and how things have escalated, so we do understand that. Our office certifies the inability of the district to fund a new school. So I said that earlier, where we look at the value of your millage, and if it's not enough to build a school, well, hey, we're here to help, and let us help. And so that's pretty much how the program works. I hope I didn't talk too fast. Yes, sir.
Yeah,
That's my door knocker friend. Yes, sir.
I heard you say about 2 or 3 times, if we don't have most of the money, you go.
The state will fund it, correct. And the way we figure out how much the school costs is based on the number of students times the student station cost. That's the base cost for a new school, and that's in statute as well. So we don't just throw a number at it. It's all calculated by statutory
And with the
requirements.
ranking, said, talk to me, and we just
They rate everybody at the same time, and most of them go for funding at the same time. Once you get ranked, then it's up to the folks, what I call across the street, because I'm across the street from the Capitol. So it's up to the legislatures to fund the schools and jump on the bandwagon. And so that's when it becomes important to talk with your constituents and have your folks up there fighting for you.
And I want to point out too, Mr. Brown, to your first question, there's no doubt that we don't have enough money to do it.
Right.
Our tax base won't support it. That's why we've engaged Ms. Brown. That's why we're learning the process. So we know that we'll be leaning into them for the funding.
Okay.
Another question. You said 20 million a year for 3 years, is that
That was
right?
just an example.
Oh, okay.
If the school were $60 million, the way the legislature has been funding it over the last probably 10 years or so is in 3-year cycles.
Okay.
So instead of getting the lump sum for the school in 1 year, they've been funding it over 3 years. And I think they did that so they could help more districts get in the program. I can't tell you if that's really why they did it, but that's how the funding has been going. We don't know the cost of the proposed school yet.
Right.
But I was just using an example.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So, but it's over 3 years, basically.
Correct.
Whatever the
Funding.
amount would be.
Whatever the amount.
It would be over 3 years.
Correct.
How do you postpone paying your contractors? Say it's an $80 million school or something like that, so you've got it set up, it's only get a third a year for 3 years. But
Correct.
your contractors are coming in and, well, I want to build, I want to pour, I want to set up the building.
We
How do
usually suggest you not building and pouring until you get that second draw. And it's
Okay,
a little easier
that's
to
it.
monitor. But it's up to the
That's
district
important.
how they handle that, but I would suggest
Oh, that makes
waiting until
perfect
you get
sense,
the
I guess,
second
yeah. It's
draw.
like, well,
And a lot of folks that work with this program understand that, you know, sometimes the payback is until the end when the funding comes through. And so that's a great question, and thank you for asking, but that's usually how districts handle that.
okay.
Yes,
So
sir.
let's do this way, we can get the 2 draws, then start construction.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and that will be up to you all and, you know, the folks that help you decide, you know, the best construction practices, et cetera, for the school. But yes, I've had districts that have start in the first year, and then, like you said, the contractors get a little antsy, and then they may have had to get a bridge loan to kind of cover the gap. And so I'm not suggesting you do that, but that is an option that another district did. Most districts start construction after that second draw, or at least after the first draw, start getting more solid plans.
Well, I've got a question for you with your expertise. I have been pushing our district in the direction of impact fees.
Yes, sir.
So if we have some additional money, does that negatively impact this program? We don't have it coming, we haven't even done that yet.
It does not, but you will have to obligate some of those fees to this program. You can either obligate your CONDS, if you had a half-cent sales tax, you could do that in lieu of that, but it has, whatever it is, has to equal the value of the 1.5 mil times 3. So whichever fund source you decide to use, if you do get impact fees.
Well, and we're looking at the half
Yes.
cent also, I mean.
Yes, and those are great helpers for districts. I know as a parent, when I drive by a school and see that your half-cent sales tax gets a new gymnasium, as a former basketball player and basketball coach, I'm all about that. So those things are great helps for the district.
So you would encourage that, then? As much as-
Yes, I would just
Without
say,
going
yes,
into your-
yes, I would just say those are great helps for
Thanks.
districts. Yes, sir.
Further questions?
I do. You mentioned if we have 1,000 students, you build for 1,100. Is there a cap on how big of a school? Because like right now, we
Yes.
are experiencing so much growth on one side of the county. If we start planning right now for 1,100, we might grow 1,400.
There is a cap in the sense that we use the projected, which is capital outlay full-time equivalents. Those numbers come from EDR, which is the Economic Demographic Research arm of the legislature. And so we're stuck within whatever numbers they project. And they project those numbers out about 20 years. For the survey purposes, we look at the 5th year out. So we're building for the 5th year out based on the number of students that EDR has projected.
Okay.
And depends on what kind of school, you know, if it's a K-5 or if it's a middle school or a high school. So those are the determining factors for that.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to make sure, if we're building a new facility, we're not building it too small right off the bat.
Right, and usually what our office allows is 2 classrooms over that capital outlay full-time equivalent. So if it were a high school, there's 25 students, up to 25 in each class, so we build 2 over. The same for middle, the same for K-5, so it just depends. But we build a little cushion in there.
Okay, thank you.
May I ask a few questions?
If in the event we don't have adequate land, will this funding source help us purchase land as well?
It does. There's a category for the purchase of land, so this funding source will help you purchase land as well.
Okay, all right. If in the event we do not have adequate hardened shelters for an area, can this school be upgraded to a higher rate wind category sheltered for us?
Yes, and that was a question, I think there's a security gentleman we talked a little bit about. He mentioned something about FEMA. I'm not familiar with the FEMA program, but the Special Facilities Construction Account Program will pay for enhanced hurricane protection area, which would also pay for a generator to run the school and to run everything backed up. When you have an EHPA, you have additional outlets in the gymnasium and or cafeteria for your disabled and your elderly folks, your medical folks. And so, yes, this program would help with that.
I have one other question.
We do have several aging schools in our district. So if we wanted to try to encompass, like our elementary schools,
Yes, sir.
3 into 1,
That is a possibility.
That is a possibility.
You can consolidate schools. I do know that the district does have on file some information about the older facilities, and consolidation is a possibility for this program.
and would you recommend that, trying to do that?
I don't like to recommend, some local districts like to have smaller schools, but it's most certainly more bang for your buck if you could consolidate and, think about some of those things. You can also apply again after you pay your obligation back. You can apply again after you paid your obligation back for a different type of school. So there's all type of possibilities, and I just love talking about the program because it really helps our small little districts out.
I see why we asked Ms. Brown to come down.
Absolutely.
Great.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
She's obviously the expert and authority on this, and we wanted to make sure that she spoke to us tonight and to you to make sure that you had the comfort level, the program that we're asking you to get engaged in. It's been 20 or 22 years now since the school was built in Hendry, and so that's been a long time. And so this is going to be this will be an absolute new experience for everyone. None of the staff members that we have on staff today has gone through this, but we know that with the knowledge that Ms. Vi and other team members that she's already brought to the table, we're very confident that we can navigate it.
I think it was really exciting when you asked the question about does it help you to purchase land, because, that's a big issue too. So thank you for asking this
Yes.
question.
Right.
Thank you for all of your questions.
When we have the kind of money like we have, we need somebody like you.
We're here to help. We are here to help. Hey, teamwork makes the dream work, right? Well, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate your time. I thought I would be on in about an hour because I saw A, B, C, D, F, G all the way to B, and I was thinking, quick chair, I like that. All right, if you have any other questions, Mr. Buzz knows how to get with me. I think we speed dial each other several times a week, just talking about this project and the process, and so thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Superintendent, would you like to restate your recommendation for action item C?
I would like to restate my recommendation for action item C. Let me make sure I'm at the right spot here. Yes. So to recap where we are, in learning this process and evaluating where we are, space has become an issue on the western side of Hendry County. The age of our school footprint has also become a very challenging issue. Those two together make up the critical need that we have embarked upon. And so, and then the growth, just so you'll know, I believe the number was since January of 2020, there's been 2,400 residential permits pulled in Hendry County, and of course the lion's share being on the western side of Hendry County. So with that being said, I recommend that we engage the Florida Department of Education Special Facilities Construction account and go forward with an application process.
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Simmerdike and a second by Mr. Baslin. Do we have any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Good job. Action item D, Mr. Superintendent, do I have your recommendation for superintendent negotiation for school site?
Yes, let me lay the groundwork for this one as well. As we look at our school site inventory, at our property inventory that we have for Western Hendry County, the acreage that we need to do this school site that we are going to be recommending is going to be upwards between 50, closer to 60 acres. The only place that we have that much acreage is in Banyan Village. The other acreage that we do own are smaller. They're 17 acres, 10 acres, 12 acres sites throughout Port LaBelle area. We do own some land adjacent to LaBelle Middle School, but again, it's 12 acres or less and will not facilitate the school. Number two, the traffic, I don't know if any of you ever drove through the Port LaBelle area pre or post school. The roadways are no longer able to keep up with the demand that our schools are putting on them. And so ingress and egress on top of the needed acreage, we are going to have to purchase some acreage. So in order to do that, part of this process, I'm going to recommend to you that you allow myself and staff to engage in that process and come back to you with a contract on some land. We're not there yet, by the way. We have been looking at properties, but we don't want to get too far ahead of it because we don't want certain information to be released and it cost us or the state our tax dollars at the end. And so what I recommend is that you authorize the superintendent and staff to negotiate for a school site and bring a said contract back to you for approval.
Mr. Superintendent?
Yes, sir.
Are you planning on trying to sell off some of the smaller parcels to offset the cost for this other piece?
So there are some opportunities like that out there. That will be up to this board if that's what this board so desires. I might also add that once we build a new school, you're going to have some school sites and locations that may also be, but that will be a decision that this board will have to make. What you want to do with your surplus properties and locations. Everything's on the table at this point, in my opinion.
So moved.
Yes, the recommendation is that the board allow the superintendent and staff to negotiate for a school site and bring back a recommended contract.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Simmerdike and a second by Mr. Brown. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Good job. Okay, can I access the hearing?
Yeah.
So at this time, we'll open the hearing for the elementary and secondary math curriculum. Mr. Superintendent, do I need to get your recommendation on this? I can have
Does anyone want to speak?
Anybody have a public comment, or questions, concerns? Seeing none, then. Oh, well, hang on, let's make our motion.
Oh, okay.
Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Let's have a motion by Mr. Simmerdike and a second by Mr. Brown. Any further discussion, Mr.
Is that to
Simmerdike?
close the hearing?
Oh, do I close it before
That-
discussion? He wants to discuss.
Okay.
Should I let him do that before?
You can close the hearing and then the board, you can hear the
Let's-
recommendation and the board can discuss.
Let's close the hearing.
What are we?
Sorry, now, is there any further discussion? Because you're not public yet. You're on the wrong side of the board.
So, about a month ago, we had a math curriculum all set up. It had gone to the teachers, it had gone to our lead teachers, and they had picked a math curriculum. And then the governor came along and said, oh, we don't want that curriculum. Did we change curriculums? Did the proposal change? Was that rectified at state level?
No, no.
What happened there?
I believe all the curriculums fell on the list that the state said were not acceptable, was my understanding. And so the curriculum companies work with the state to clean up or amend or clarify the things that were there that met the criteria or standards that what the state didn't like or why they were withdrawn. So once that happened, then they went back and then recertified that these were state approved.
Okay, for us to
So
use.
they modified if there was issues with this.
Exactly, that's right.
I just.
And our decision never changed, is my understanding. From day one, this is what our folks, and what the process sorted it to the top, and we stayed with that and just allowed them time to sort out on the state level what needed to happen.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Our teachers are happy with this curriculum?
Absolutely happy.
Good.
Now that I've done all of this flying through with my speed talking, do I need to get a recommendation from you?
Yes, I will be happy to provide a recommendation. Recommendation for the elementary math curriculum will be the HMH Go Math, and on the secondary side, it will be the Big Ideas Learning Math curriculum. Both will be for a 5-year period. Did I say that right? Okay.
Okay. So we have a motion by Mr. Brown and a second by Mr. Bassett. Now, any further discussion? Good, okay, all in favor of approval? Opposed? Motion carried, we have a new math curriculum.
Awesome.
All right. Moving on, board member business, item A, 2022-23 board meeting presentations.
So on this item, we have been doing presentations in each meeting. I want to follow the direction of the board. Do y'all want to continue them? Do y'all like them? Do y'all want to move them? Do y'all want to modify them, do anything different? Keep doing them as we've been doing them? I just want to get your feedback.
I personally love it.
I do too.
I love it when the kids come in and they do a little presentation, when the teachers speak. When we used to sit and watch the school improvement plan and would be posted on the board, I found that very dry and confusing. But when we actually see learning going on with the kids, I think that's a great. And you know, in smaller elements like our police academy and stuff like that, when they come in and stuff like that, I just think that adds so much to our insight of what's going on in our schools. Well, that's my opinion.
I agree. I think, are we kind of on the same page? And not that I don't love our principals and love hearing the data, but, you know, it's kind of, it can get redundant.
Yeah.
I like
We know they're
the
working
kids,
hard.
Right, I like the kids and the programs and the entertainment, I guess. So I don't know how you guys feel.
Y'all tried to, they were bored.
I did not say that, but I mean, you can only absorb so much data, and I know they get tired of saying it over and over, and I can call them up if I have questions.
Some of them don't make me feel real intelligent sometimes.
Well,
Some
again-
things these little guys do is just incredible. But I agree.
They can drive robots, but yeah, I mean,
I
that
agree.
kind of be maybe a consensus if we could.
No, as
steer
long
in
as I
that
understand that's
direction.
what y'all want to keep doing, we can work with the principals to make sure that they're more student-driven and program-driven, and less school data, because we get that, you're right, and we try to tell them to dial that down.
It's amazing watching them, like the programming and the 3D printing, and I mean, just the
Yeah.
different things like that they do. It's just
Okay.
incredible.
Okay, well,
How often, how frequently are we wanting to do like?
that, again, that's kind of y'all, if y'all want them once a month,
once a
or,
quarter?
and we do like sprinkling in, like Miss Allen tonight, Miss Duncan's working on, some of the state reading score. I want her to make sure that she shares with y'all the data that she's putting together for that, and so we like kind of sprinkling in things that you really don't have time, you know, to sit with Miss Allen or Miss Duncan to sit there and make sure that you get some of that, and so if y'all don't mind,
Yeah.
we'll sprinkle them in and use them. You want to continue to do something every meeting where you have some type of presentation?
I like a presentation. It doesn't have to be every school, or every program,
Okay.
but maybe from high tech or our security or
Yes.
there's other things that I would still like to hear about in our schools, our facility, and Mr. Musin could speak sometime, our
Okay.
transportation. I mean, there's a lot of elements
Right.
to running, and we sit here, we make a lot of decisions,
Mhm.
but sometimes we don't have that background.
Okay.
That's my fault.
Ms. Collins is making lists, and she's already got a few things lined up, so she's here.
I'm sure I'm on her list.
Could we maybe try to scale them back to like 15 to 20 minutes?
Yes,
instead of the-
right. Yep.
Yeah, well, I mean, we'll just really, I know you tried, I think.
And we try to tell them, give you more of a high level, broad overview of what they're doing, not, because when you go into a lot of details, it really takes time. But again, we'll follow your lead on that.
I mean, I'm not gonna get angry if they go over, but, yeah, it's just depending on like an agenda tonight, and it's really, it's for a long meeting. I don't know about you guys, but my son's proud. So, okay, anything else on the presentation? Good?
All good there?
Just to confirm, was that still gonna be, you still want them every board meeting?
Yes, if possible. Yep.
All right, board Board Member Business B, request RFP architectural service for new school.
So one of the things that we learned early on, and again, Mr. Busey and I and team readily admit that we do not have background knowledge or the skill set to be able to plan and execute the construction of a school. Ms. Violet Brown has already made some great contacts with us with architects that do these projects, that they specialize in building schools. It's glaringly obvious that we're going to get in contractual agreement with someone in order to make that happen. And really is all and then we will also end up hiring and contracting with a contractor. And so these are just the big steps along the way that we have to take. Really, this is just an FYI, because what we will do now is put out an RFQ or an RFP, whichever one would be more appropriate, to architectural services for the construction of the school. They will help us even with the application process, with the presentation we have to do that she spoke about in Tallahassee. And so they will work with us all the way through. They're well aware that there is a delayed funding. They know that. They're used to this. They do this. This is what they do for a living. And so they're already talking to us and introducing themselves and wanting to work with us. And so we're very excited about that. I just want to give you a heads up that maybe by the end of the summer, you may see something come across an agenda item, and a team and a committee will sit and sift through that and select one and bring a recommendation to you that we go ahead and enter into a contractual agreement with this architect service.
We I probably that we didn't catch it. Jay Ammon, he doesn't do this?
Jay Ammon is our architecture of record, and he is working with us on this. He is not a school design architect. So there will be, since he is our architect of record, he will be engaged, and there will be things he is doing, but we will still have to hire a secondary architect firm to ensure that we are building to today's specs and following the UE guidelines and staying in step with the special facilities use agreements and things like that.
I know one time we tried to go, I probably been there more than anybody else, but we tried to go out and he got there.
That's right, yeah. We're in constant, I spoke to him today, and so he's well aware of what we're doing, totally supportive of what we're doing. And he'll help us do the selection and work with us all along the way.
Thank you.
Good, great question, and good catch.
All right. Mr. Sandra, you have any board member business?
Of course.
All right.
Okay, yeah, I was gone for a couple of weeks, so I've saved some up well.
I know.
So, this one's for Mr. Brown, and I don't mean, I'm not gonna put you on the spot, because I was just listening to NPR tonight, and they had the FBI developer of the active shooter program, and she was talking about, of course, with what happened in Texas, it's such a disaster and stuff like that. And she was talking about that a lot of schools use the FBI active shooter program. I don't know whether we have implemented that or not. But what she was saying, that they're changing it from the hide and so they lock the classroom and they just hide. That was basically the old program. And now she's saying it's a run, hide, fight. They're moving in that direction, and I'd never heard that before, and maybe you haven't either. I heard it for the first time on the way over today. So I just thought it was kind of interesting, kind of unique.
Well, if I can comment on that. Run, hide, fight is they're actually behind the 8 ball on that. Run, hide, fight is no more. They're trying to transition actually away from that to give teachers and administrators the option to assess the situation and then to determine, depending on their class and their students, whether they should lock down, whether they should evacuate or evade, and make the decision at that point. Because of all the incidents that have happened, they learn the lessons learned from each incident, and they take that, and that's a constantly evolving thing. So just beyond run, hide, fight is last year.
Okay.
So they're already moving and evolving past that.
I'm sure there's changes again, huh? Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Moving on. Every week I talk about the impact fees. So today I went to the engineering office and I was talking about all the building that's going on the west side of the county and stuff like that. And so we were talking in the office, and they said, well, you know, there is some building, not a lot, but some in Pioneer. Ladika has houses being built, and there's a lot more growth in Montura. So when we're kicking it around before and we're talking about impact fees, well, it would only service LaBelle School, and that was a kicker because I felt bad about that. But Pioneer, Ladika, Montura are all feeder schools for Lewiston. Now, may not be a lot of money, but if it's surely going to be a couple $100,000 easy with that you can save, and then you can save that money for associated things with land acquisition, land improvement, design, engineering, permitting costs. The impact fees can address, we can save that and address those at that time. Now we have to separate LaBelle, we have to separate Lewiston schools, but we can pocket that money until we're ready. We're gonna need it. So I just thought, so I talked to them and I thought, well, that was interesting. I just wanted to share that, not to do anything with it.
Did you get an update on where they are in the process?
No.
Would you like an update on where they are in the
I
process?
would.
Okay. So the county put out, Hendry County put out request for proposals because we have to do an impact fee study
Right.
before we can re-implement them. They had 2 firms reply last Friday. The proposals were reviewed and the firms were interviewed and the firms were scored. And at the next BOCC meeting, which will be a week from tonight, they should be recommending which firm they want to go with. I'm not even sure which firm that is yet.
Yeah.
I only know that the process happened. And so at that point in time, it will come back to the school board and say, your portion of the impact fee study will be X amount of dollars. Do y'all want to participate or not? And then as a board, we need to decide, can we afford it? Would this be worth it? And then if that's the answer, then we can move forward with that. They say that it's more than likely a 6 to a 9 month study.
It's gotta be.
So we'll probably be this time next year, you know, by the time they let the contract, get the fee, get it back, we approve it, we institute it and stuff like that. So we are behind, and I apologize for that piece of it, but at least we are making some progress. And hopefully by our next board meeting, we may have the answer.
But that money might be coming about the same time that sales tax, if that passes.
That's correct, that is
It'll all be
correct.
coming in almost in January of
Yes,
next year.
You're close, that's correct. Right.
So, anyway, I just want to share that. Thank you.
All right.
Now, one more topic that I need to address, and that was the closing of the youth academies. Okay, I worked at the youth academies for probably 4 years, every week. I was at CYDA, LYDA, and so forth. So I was looking at Mr. Swindle's presentation, and he said that 92 students were there because of either drugs or big fights. That was his numbers. So I called the teachers at CYDA and LYDA. So how many students did you actually serve that year? At CYDA, they served 163. Now you gotta remember, they're not there for the year. They come in on a program, and as they meet the requirement, they can stay for generally 45 days. They could move out quicker if their behaviors and their academic work and everything is good, but there's a lot of behavior mod there. At LYDA, it was 148. So we had 311 students in the youth academies being served last year. Now I take out the 92 because that's a target. That meant that 216 students that weren't there because of fighting and weren't there because of bringing drugs to schools were served. And when they're being served at that academy, I have to tell you that I thought the lead teachers and their parents were very professional. They built self-confidence in those kids. They had a lot of parent contact. They worked with those kids face to face every day for as long as they worked. And a lot of times, those kids were successful. The goal of that program was to get back into the regular school setting. Now, we had some recidivism, and they did come back. But it was a safe place. What happens is, there's nobody to show off. You know, a lot of kids are looking for attention. So, They're not gonna get it because of their academics. They're gonna get it because they act a fool, act out, now they've got the attention. And what happens is, that hurts the classroom teacher. Now we gotta settle with somebody before I can get back to my teaching and stuff like that. So what, the other thing, besides providing a program for our students, these students who we say at risk, nobody goes to LYDA or CYDA if they're not at risk. But of the at-risk students, I think that we did a pretty good job of serving them. And really respected the staff that was there. And I just wanted to say that.
Can I add on a little bit?
Go ahead.
Probably no one in this room has any more experience than Mr. Semberdike with the YDAs and dealing with those students, so I appreciate you saying that. And what I want to point out is that it's so effective. What we did was we dispersed the staff to do that work at the schools,
Okay.
be more proactive. So rather than reactive, work with MTSS, work with the deans and say, wait a minute, little John Baskin's already acting up in class, go pull him and let's find out why. And then work with him through, to keep him from getting in trouble that way. And so we're going to continue doing that. We're just going to do it on a school site basis. And,
Right, I didn't see that in that.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
I was just concerning. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. That's it for me.
Mr. Bestland?
Yeah, Superintendent, wanna go ahead? No.
Oh, yeah. Eat this man some peanuts.
I am good, thank you.
Reverend Brown?
I want to say I appreciate the program to have at Clueston High School, what I would call at-risk young men. A lot of times, I've been guilty of it, probably all of us, have putting the weight on the parent, which it shouldn't be there. But there are some situations where parents don't care to that level. And by being a pastor in the community, I get a chance to talk to children that parents don't care and doesn't allow the kid to care. And there's always some, maybe 3 or 4, that are going to make it with just a little phone call or something and say, hey, you can do this. I say that because I probably shouldn't say it like this, but I've been back in the corner by a young man that was selling drugs. I was talking to him about coming to the Lord and stop doing what he's doing. He said, okay. You want me to stop selling drugs? Okay, where I stop? Where am I going to get money from? How am I going to? I don't have enough respect to respect nobody else, so I didn't finish school. And at that level, he's gotten where he's sort of sealed over because he figures that's it for me. But I'm working with him, and my back's against the wall, but I'm coming back. But there's someone that cares for him. And with those children, a lot of times they look rough, they look rough, but that's a lot of times the surface. But if you break through that little surface there, you can save. You won't save them all, but you'll save some that really want to be helped. So I just want to say, public, I appreciate what you guys are doing, and if I can help anyway, I'll
You're
make
going to be
sure
getting
that
involved.
I'll make sure I do the best I can. I appreciate it.
Anything further?
No.
Okay, board, I got an email from FSBA, and it is time for us to select our district's advocacy committee representative and advocacy committee alternate. So do I have any volunteers?
I nominate Mr. Brown.
I second it.
I'm done, I just did it, so,
Oh, you did it.
yeah. Mr. Brown will be, do we need to make motions on this, or you'll just let FSBA know? Okay, so which one of you two young fellows would like to be the alternates?
I nominate Mr. Semberdike.
I felt it coming, so we'll have Mr., do you accept that nomination? Yes, okay. Mr. Brown will be the representative, and Mr. Semberdike will be the alternative.
Good job.
Surprise! John and I have things going on right now. Yep, that's what you get for being so helpful. We got
Well, I
you.
might not be here after a while. It's all up for re-election, man.
On that note, I'm hungry and I'm tired, and I'll just say my usual thank you. Mr. Superintendent, do you have anything further?
I just want to say thank you to the board. I appreciate your support. You heard some high-level conversation tonight, and you made the first step of a very, very big step that's going to be impactful for this district with regard to the school and facilities and stuff like that. That's going to be around for a long time. So thank you. I appreciate your foresight and your willing to listen and your trust in us to make sure that it gets done correctly. So I appreciate your support on that. And I'd like to say I appreciate our staff. You know, we ended up the school year since the last time we spoke. And, yep, go ahead.
The new curriculum thing, no one was supposed to get something from the state that said we're gonna be monitoring students, not the little test we take.
Oh, right, the testing, right.
Anything from the state?
They are still laying the tracks as the trains are coming. And so they still to this day don't have it all ironed out. Just last week, we were at a conference and they were giving us information about how it's supposed to look and they think they've got this and here's how they expect it to be. And so, yeah, it's not 100% there yet, but we were still learning it as they were giving it to us. So.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. That's a good question. But, and Mr. Sambernacker, I appreciate your question about the school safety. You know, nationwide, the school year ended up on a very sad note. It is a burning topic now. It has been in this district for a long time. We take safety very seriously, our fencing, training people to help protect our babies every day, day in and day out. And so I appreciate you asking the question and letting our community and board and audience know that it is important to us as well. Our hearts and prayers goes out to the community of Uvalde because I just couldn't fathom, you know, what the loss and the pain that they're going through. So, so thank you for that. That's all from me.
Chad, you have anything to say?
Thank you, Board Chairwoman. No, I do not. Thank you.
Thank you all. This meeting is